Good morning, everybody. This is a live emergency weather briefing as we have a very large slight risk that has been expanded northwest to include the Oklahoma City metro. That's the threat late night tonight into early Tuesday morning. A couple of different modes to watch there. There could be a lead renegade area of supercells across central and southern Arkansas that no models are predicting, but the environment does look favorable maybe into the early morning hours on Tuesday. But then the main threat will arrive late night tonight, midnight into the early morning hours. Mainly that's going to be a threat of elevated supercell storms, damaging wind, possibly even some large hail as well late night tonight, but that's why that slight risk has been expanded off to the northwest, large portion of northwestern Texas into the Oklahoma City metro. And there's also a large day 3 risk. There you can see the day 3 slight risk across central northern Mississippi, eastern Arkansas, all the way up into southern Illinois and western Kentucky. And I see a couple of different modes possible on Tuesday for severe weather. I'm leaning a little bit toward that late afternoon and evening threat of a band of renegades that should develop from central and northern Mississippi into northwestern Alabama. That's going to be about 21Z, 4 or 5 p.m. when those fire. A little bit earlier in the day, though, along that frontal boundary, southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois, into western Kentucky, there's a northern mode up there that could have some embedded supercells. The hodographs are a little bit flat. We're going to look at the environment that those storms are moving into as well. Still keeping my target area open on Tuesday. I'm not sure if I'm going to target that northern mode up into southern Illinois, or will I target more of the renegade threat of supercells further south. But here you can see the 500 millibar evolution, and look at that trough coming in on the backside in the western U.S. That's going to shear out a bit over that anticyclone that's dominating the Gulf of Mexico off the southeastern U.S., creating a pretty substantial ice storm across central Oklahoma, extending through the Ozark Mountain region, northern Arkansas, southern Missouri. That's going to be the middle portion of this week. And let me show you the national surface temperatures. See the temperatures warm up, and then your front starts to head south. Watch the temperature there in Oklahoma City dropping into the teens. So this is a very cold Arctic air mass, definitely colder than the previous ones that we've had that dropped snow as well as ice. This one definitely looks like a textbook ice event with those temperatures down into the low to mid 20s, maybe even the upper teens, and then the precipitation arrives. Warm advection over that shallow Arctic air mass could create the threat of icing, and I'm going to show you exactly where those locations are going to happen. Here's your 0 to 3 kilometer EHI showing you that favorable environment that evolves over central and eastern Oklahoma late night tonight. Starting about 5 to 6Z is when that environment gets most prime. Look at that moisture surge northward. Central southern Arkansas is wondering if there was maybe a threat of some renegade supercells out there late evening tonight, but the convective allowing models are just not showing the likelihood of those storms developing out ahead of the front. You really need that convergence in the upper support associated with that jet streak ejecting the late night hours tonight into the early morning hours on Tuesday to really get that severe weather force, that elevated severe weather. And there you can see that environment evolving over eastern Oklahoma tonight. That's probably what I'm going to be chasing late night tonight, and will likely target central into northern Mississippi for that band of renegade storms that could develop on Tuesday. There you can see that low-level jet develop across East Texas into the Arklatex, and also extending back to the northwest into central Oklahoma. And that's why that slight risk has been extended northwest into the Oklahoma City metro, central and eastern Oklahoma. And then there's that narrow ribbon of that low-level jet that extends down into central Mississippi Tuesday late afternoon in the evening hours. I do think that there is a chance of some renegade supercells that could develop into that warm sector as well. But look across eastern Oklahoma. Decent wind shear into the early morning hours tomorrow, and that's potentially going to be before 12Z when those storms come through. Probably more of like a 8 to 9Z type time frame across northwestern Texas, and then moving in to central Oklahoma late night tonight. But we're going to break down the detailed timing of all of these modes tonight through Tuesday as well, tomorrow late afternoon and evening. But look at that moisture surge today. Temperatures are going to be into the upper 70s across central and eastern Oklahoma. Gradual increase in that moisture, and then the frontal boundary will come in into central and eastern Oklahoma tonight, well, early morning hours on Tuesday. And that's when there could be some elevated hailers that'll come out of northwestern Oklahoma or northwest Texas through central Oklahoma, the Oklahoma City Metro, into eastern Oklahoma, and then eventually across the Ozarks along that front. I do also want to break down these hodographs using the new hodograph product that's available on the College of DuPage website. This shows you that environment on Tuesday evening. So this is at 0Z on Tuesday. And you can definitely see some of these decent hodographs across central and northern Mississippi, even up into western Tennessee, western Kentucky as well, showing you some favorable hodographs. Here is the main front that's going to be sagging off to the southeast. And there's definitely going to be two modes on Tuesday afternoon to target. You're going to have this front that's moving east through the Ozarks of Arkansas, southeastern Missouri. Certainly will have some convection along it. Decent hodographs out ahead of that mode as well across southeastern Missouri and across southern Illinois, western Kentucky, western Tennessee, down into the northeastern corner of Arkansas. And then your southern mode is starting to get organized across central and northern Mississippi as well. And watch those hodographs elongate. The more curved your hodograph is, the more storm relative helicity generally available to the storm. So you're looking for the purple region of these hodographs to have that very well pronounced hook shape to the hodograph, and that will give you more low-level wind shear available to these storms. You can also see this mode across western Kentucky. Also some pretty favorably curved hodographs, decent wind shear up there in that purple region, which is the lowest 3 kilometers of that hodograph. But it does, notice how these hodographs get a lot more straight line as you get closer to that frontal boundary that's going to be sagging off to the southeast. Southeastern Missouri, northeastern Arkansas, into southern Illinois, moving into western Kentucky as well. So that's why I'm loosely targeting more of that renegade potential across central and northern Mississippi. The environment is quite favorable down here as well for the formation of those renegade storms. But it's also favorable across northern Arkansas. This is about 18Z. Midday, around 1 p.m., northeastern Arkansas, possibly the Ozark Mountain region into southeastern Missouri, looks quite favorable as well. So you definitely have your classic bimodal setup that's going to start to transpire. The surface low ejects rapidly northeast, though. So by late afternoon, your surface low is already moving through the Ohio River Valley. And then the eyes will be on the southern mode, central and northern Mississippi, for the development of renegade storms toward the evening hours, and that threat of tornadoes could extend after sunset as well across central and northern Mississippi. There's your significant tornado parameter, quite high across northeastern Arkansas into southeastern Missouri. 18Z on Tuesday looks quite favorable for tornado potential as well. And you just hold down this one for a little bit and you can plot that sounding from COD. And there is your hodograph just to the left of my head. This is what I mean by just some slightly shallow critical angles. That's the angle between the storm motion vector, which is going to be quite fast down there, about 50 to 60 knots. And then also your hodograph curve, which is basically connecting the ends of your wind vectors. Your surface wind, south-southwest, at least early on, around midday into the early afternoon across northeastern Arkansas and southeastern Missouri. Doesn't quite veer yet, but you do have south-southwesterly winds at the surface. Your 1 kilometer wind due southwesterly, so it does create a bit of a shallow critical angle. Decent dew points, though, 70 over 65. Look at the thermodynamics of this sounding. And you also have that elevated mix layer centered at about 3 kilometers. That should help to clear out some of that cloudiness, steepen these lapse rates, decent cape as well. Your 0 to 1 kilometer shear on this sounding with that flatter critical angle is about 270 0 to 1 or meters squared per second squared, held down a little bit by these southwesterly surface winds across this target. But I definitely am liking that elevated mix layer. That contributes to about 1,600 cape, plenty of cape with these steeper lapse rates with that dry slot of air coming in over top of this moisture, 70 over 65 at the low levels with that environment across northeastern Arkansas into southeastern Missouri. But That is that environment shifts rapidly into southern Illinois, far southern Illinois, so it is a pretty progressive mode. You'll have to be down into north central Arkansas at 1 p.m. and then up into southern Illinois by about 4 p.m. to realize that mode. And then the threat by late afternoon into evening shifts to renegades across central and northern Mississippi. But wow, look at this sounding across southern Illinois. That's a much more favorable hodograph. Your critical angle closer to 50 degrees as well. You can see a lot more curvature with this hodograph, and your 0 to 1 kilometer shear 350 in that southern Illinois target. So southeastern Missouri into far southern Illinois, definitely a pretty favorable target despite these southwesterly surface winds. You still get some decent directional shear going from a southwesterly surface wind to a west southwesterly wind aloft, and you still have that decent elevated mix layer as well. So I do think it would be more of a gamble playing the threat of those renegades down into central and northern Mississippi later on. That is going to be more of a 21 to 0Z type of a target. Your significant tornado parameter becomes a bit more favorable, 0Z to midnight. The 6Z HRRR is certainly showing some convection down into central and northern Mississippi as well during the afternoon hours. But let's shift gears toward the late night event tonight across eastern Oklahoma. So I'm going to have to come up with my storm chasing plan. Do I work eastern Oklahoma late night tonight and then head toward that southeastern Missouri target into southern Illinois? Do I just head out to southern Illinois right now and get out there out ahead of the event? And then, so I also need to decide, do I want to target the renegades on down into Mississippi, central and northern Mississippi on late afternoon Tuesday into the evening hours. So the threat, that slight risk today, which let me shift back over to the day 2. Oh, that's a day 1, isn't it? I have it as a day 2, but it is Monday today. So we want to focus on that 60-degree dew point line, the 60-degree isodrosotherm, which right now is down into central Texas. Let me log in here in my Pivotal Weather account. All right, so there's your 60 line moving into central Texas. But the Red River at 13Z this morning already starting to increase into the upper 50s, back into the 40s across Oklahoma. We'll take a look at the mesonet, the real surface map as well here in a little bit. So there's your 60 line surging into southeastern Oklahoma by 20Z, all the way up into central Arkansas as well by Little Rock by 20Z as well. That's about 3 p.m., 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Start to get a gradual increase in those dew points. Upper 60s down near the I-20 corridor, northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas. But watch the western edge of these dew points as well. Oklahoma City is into the mid to upper 40s by about 4 p.m. And we'll have to see what those surface dew points do. By 23Z, it does look like that boundary, the western edge of that moisture gradient, is setting up just to the east of the Oklahoma City metro. Dew points rising through the mid to upper 60s across Arkansas. That's at 0Z, about 6 p.m., getting near sunset now. 1Z, 7 p.m., 8 p.m. now. And look at that gradient setting up just to the east of the Oklahoma City metro. And the dew points dropping down into Oklahoma City behind that as that boundary is pushing off to the east. Pretty substantial fire danger too across this low relative humidity environment. Quite a bit of wind as well out there, but that's where that dew point gradient is setting up. Deeper dew points in place across Arkansas, but I just don't think there's going to be any surface convergence or energy that will get storms to develop across the open warm sector late night tonight, early morning hours. And there's that moisture gradient sitting just to the west of DFW, just to the east of Oklahoma City. By this time, you're going to have these elevated hailers evolving. This is about just after midnight into the early morning hours. 5Z, it's all late evening type action here. But boy, they develop relatively early across North Texas. That's 2Z. 1Z here is when these storms start to appear across northwest Texas, mainly elevated storms well to the west of that dew point axis. There's the dew point axis, but those elevated storms are gradually approaching it by about 8 p.m. or so across North Texas near the Red River. Elevated convection starting to reach those dew points. It's possible that they could develop some supercell structures there across North Texas and starting to approach the dew points just to the west of DFW. Keep an eye on that. Some of those storms could go surface-based and even develop tornado potential across North Texas near that Red River tonight. About a 30, 40 knot low-level jet. Spotty, but it is a decent low-level jet contributing to some of that wind shear. Looking at your 0 to 1 kilometer EHI. The best environment is definitely over eastern Oklahoma, but there could be a threat of an elevated supercell potentially going surface-based as it moves a little bit closer to those 60-plus dew points. But that capping inversion should cause most of those storms to be elevated that are moving out of northwest Texas and near that Red River region. Pretty substantial hodograph, though. So keep an eye on this environment across northwest Texas to the northwest of DFW through eastern Oklahoma, especially definitely after sunset and after late evening approaching the midnight hour. That environment, favorable environment for even a surface-based storm or two, lifts into northeastern Oklahoma, southwestern Missouri. But most of the track of the storms here is from northwest Texas through southern Oklahoma into eastern Oklahoma as well. These elevated supercells moving off to the east and then eventually arriving into the Ozarks. But it's this belt where the threat of a nighttime tornado or two, hail, damaging wind is greatest, moving out of northwest Texas to the northwest of Dallas, near the Red River region, southern Oklahoma, eventually passing into the Ozarks of northern Arkansas and reinvigorating back toward the Red River into the very early morning hours. This is about 2 to 3 a.m. across southern Oklahoma near that Red River area. Could definitely get a wind event into the Fayetteville, Arkansas area, up into the Ozarks into the early morning hours on Tuesday. This is at 8Z. So this is about 2 in the morning, 1 to 2 in the morning. You're going to have these hail-producing storms, southeastern Oklahoma. Difficult terrain here to chase as well across the mountains of eastern Oklahoma into northern Arkansas by 8Z. And then we're going to have to decide whether we want to target southeastern Missouri or southern Illinois ahead of this convective line. There is going to be quite a bit of convection out there within that isentropic lift. As that low-level jet pop pushes off to the east, you're also going to have a broken line of convection, southeastern Missouri, extending back into the Ozarks at 12Z on Tuesday morning. That could lead to a little bit more of a messy mode up there. And that line pushes east to the Ohio River by 14Z. And then you start to get a hint at that main northern mode that's going to develop by the afternoon hours. But definitely looks like the timing isn't quite appropriate up there for that severe weather, but we'll just have to see as we go through the day today, looking at some of those models. Looks like the best environment, trying to reinvigorate across southeastern Missouri with this northern mode. And you should get a reinvigoration of the convection as well. That's about noon Central Standard Time. We'll have to be watching this zone for redevelopment of storms along that front. Southeastern Missouri, back into the Ozarks. That's going to be that main mode. You're going to have a couple of rounds of storms. Looks like your embedded skinny squall line, maybe with some embedded circulations moving through central Kentucky. But I'm going to be watching this area and also this area, central northern Mississippi, on Tuesday afternoon for those storms to redevelop in it. Does look like, will this atmosphere be able to recover across southeastern Missouri into northeastern Arkansas behind this lead MCS that moves through? We'll just have to see. Or how robust will this convection be? And this is going to be the same convection that develops tonight across eastern Oklahoma. It's going to move through the Ozarks, bring it through multiple rounds of heavy rain across this region too. Flooding is definitely going to be a concern from all that rain. But I wonder if the atmosphere will be able to recover behind that lead complex of storms. That's definitely going to be an issue. A very messy evolution that's going to be happening. But if these storms are able to mature across southeastern Missouri into northern Arkansas, then there certainly could be a chance of a tornado or two moving into southern Illinois as well. It does look like a broken area of supercell storms. Temperatures barely pushing 70 into the far southern tip of Illinois as well. Southeastern Missouri recovers a little bit more, closer to 70 degrees, back into northern Arkansas. Meanwhile, though, this area across central and northern Mississippi is just going to be cooking during the afternoon hours on Tuesday. Warming up into the low 70s, low to mid 70s. The area across the northern mode does look like it could be disrupted by this lead convective element, and then that mode comes in back behind it. Even though the environment looks more favorable for this, it just looks like there's not going to be enough time for the instability to really be realized across southeastern Missouri, far southern Illinois into western Kentucky. But then you start to see these bean-shaped renegades across central Alabama, back into central and northern Mississippi by the late afternoon hours. And these could even have a tornado potential as well. Areas like Tupelo up toward Hamilton, Alabama, northwestern Alabama, northeastern Mississippi as well. Does have a threat of maybe a tornado or two. And this environment is interesting, kind of a sleeper target, but definitely have a critical angle that's greater than 50 degrees, a lot closer to a 90-degree critical angle, especially if you're calculating that relative to the 500 meters. You have a lot more directional shear. Due southerly surface winds down across northeastern Mississippi, going up into a southwesterly low-level jet, and then a west-southwesterly upper-level wind. You also have a bit of an elevated mixed layer here that's centered over 3 kilometers that should help to clear out those clouds. About 1,500 Cape, about 270 to 300, 0 to 1 kilometer shear. Pretty steep low-level lapse rates as well, different from this last setup on February 17th that we were chasing. And that hodograph as well, very favorable hodograph, even though your 1 kilometer wind isn't as strong as it is further north across southeastern Missouri. It's closer to 40 knots out of the southwest. It does have that greater directional shear that leads to a very nicely curved hodograph. Your surface wind due southerly at about 10 knots. You plot where the wind is blowing. It's like you're looking down on the hodograph curve. And then your 1 kilometer wind, south-southwest, closer to 40 knots. Upper level winds due southwest, 40, 50 knot winds, a little bit stronger aloft as well. So that environment kinematically is quite favorable across eastern Mississippi. That's about 23Z, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, moving into northwestern Alabama as well. Probably going to be a couple of those renegade bubblers that are moving through that environment. Oh, look at that. Really getting invigorated from your area Meridian up toward Columbus, Mississippi, through northwestern Alabama Tuesday afternoon. So this is likely a target area that I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on. Just looks like a supercell factory here across this prefrontal confluence line from central Mississippi into the northeastern portion of the state into northwestern Alabama as well. Decent dew points down there. You're not going to have to worry about the interference from that lead band of storms that develops tonight across eastern Oklahoma, moves through the Ozarks and up into western Kentucky. That certainly could cause a squeeze play for the warm sector to recover across southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois. It also ejects relatively fast as that surface low lifts off to the northeast. A little bit of a lobe, we'll call it. Not necessarily a surface low, but a lobe. And then look at this cold air that arrives back into Oklahoma Tuesday night. Temperatures plummeting below freezing Tuesday night. So this is Tuesday at about 10 p.m. Tuesday evening. And this is going to be setting the stage for that icing event. Looks like a southeastern Oklahoma into the Ozark Mountains of northern Arkansas type of an event on Wednesday evening. Look at that icing. In excess of a 1/4 inch, all the way down into central Texas as well, northeast Texas. Could be a Dallas event as well. This is by Thursday late morning. The NAM, at least, has that main swath of ice across northeast Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, and across the Ozarks of northern Arkansas, Missouri, Boot Heel, western Kentucky gets into that swath of ice. This is just the NAM model, of course. 12Z NAM. GFS is a little bit further northwest, bringing that ice a little closer to the Oklahoma City metro. But boy, look at the ice that the GFS drops across northern Arkansas, southeastern Missouri, southern Illinois as well, gets in on the action. And then there's the European model, just has Oklahoma City, central, eastern Oklahoma getting pasted. And this is the 6Z European model that shows this icing event. So quite a bit of model discrepancy still on where this swath of ice is going to show up Wednesday into Thursday. Is it going to be more of a southeastern Oklahoma event into northern Arkansas, or will it be more of a central Oklahoma right through the I-44 corridor, southern Missouri, and northern Arkansas as well? So it will be a big-time icing event. So I think what I'm probably going to do is I'll cover the nocturnal hailers across southeastern Oklahoma as I'm heading off to the east, and then I might try to catch a little shut-eye in Little Rock, wake up very early, and then I might drop southeast toward those renegades in northern Mississippi for Tuesday afternoon, and then I'm going to pivot up toward the Ozarks, up the Ozark Mountains of northern Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma to cover the icing event for AccuWeather on Wednesday into Thursday. And then I'm going to point the ship back off to the east to reunite with Gizmo down across upstate South Carolina. So that looks like my chase plan for the upcoming event for the severe weather, nocturnal severe weather across southern Oklahoma, eastern Oklahoma that I'm going to be covering. And then I'm going to drop towards central and northern Mississippi for Tuesday afternoon for the threat of some daytime renegades. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this weather report. Hopefully my audio was working the whole entire time. I'm here in Norman, Oklahoma, and that's going to be my plan. Stay tuned to the weather updates. I will be streaming live, of course, late night tonight, tomorrow. Definitely leaning toward those renegades, though, that are going to be a little bit later in the day on Tuesday, late afternoon into evening across central and northern Mississippi. And then also covering this icing event that's going to impact portions of eastern Oklahoma and northern Arkansas Wednesday through the Thursday time period. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this morning weather report. Never stop chasing.